few years ago, strolling along the coast of Lampedusa was like stepping into a Mediterranean paradise. Crystal blue waters, majestic yachts gracing the horizon, and bustling tourists bringing vibrant life to the port city. However, today, that serene city has been replaced by a distressing reality.
This isn't the first time that Italy has seen this kind of level of seaborne arrivals.
An endless parade of small, unseaworthy African boats loaded with desperate refugees arrive at the Italian coast every month. In 2023 alone, more than 127,000 Africans illegally entered Italy through the Mediterranean Sea, with peaks of 120 boats carrying 7,000 people in a single day. The outlook for 2024 is even more alarming, and Italians are furious.
I'm sorry, she says, I don't intend to pay 28 more years of a mortgage for my kids to live in a refugee camp.
The immigration crisis seems unstoppable, and Italians, feeling abandoned by the European Union, are placing their hopes in Giorgia Meloni, a far-right leader implementing controversial measures to stem the immigrant tide. Italian society is grappling with an unprecedented challenge, while the rest of Europe scrutinizes the policies of its prime minister, who warns that the nation is on the brink of collapse.
Non consentirò che l'Italia diventi un campo profughi d'Europa.
How deep is the severity of the crisis? The immigration crisis in Italy has intensified, exacerbating existing socio-economic issues. Conflicts in Africa and the Middle East have forced over 1 million people to seek refuge in Europe, including many Syrians escaping civil war. Initially, the European Union responded with humanitarian aid, but the continuous influx soon overwhelmed the system. In 2016, southern Italy saw a peak with over 180,000 arrivals. Though there was a brief respite in 2018 and 2019, the war in Ukraine in 2020 triggered another wave of refugees, combined with an economic crisis in Romania that drove many Romanians to seek stability in Italy. By late 2021, around 10% of Italy's population consisted of foreigners, excluding undocumented immigrants and temporary refugees. From 2015 onwards, Italy supported Ukrainian and Romanian migrants through the northern corridor while maintaining a humanitarian stance for those arriving by sea. The Red Cross set up camps along the southern coasts and in the Pelagia archipelago, while the government implemented programs to register and employ refugees in industrial and service sectors. In 2023, Italy declared a state of emergency due to the sharp rise in migrant arrivals through the Mediterranean. Overcrowding in facilities, particularly on the island of Lampedusa, necessitated this measure. The Italian government plans to increase funding to host and process migrants not allowed to remain in the country. The surge in immigration has strained public services, led to housing crises, and increased job competition, particularly in the south, where integration has been more challenging due to existing economic hardships. In 2024, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's efforts to manage immigration included an agreement with Tunisia to reduce the flow of migrants across the Mediterranean. Despite these measures, the number of barges arriving from Tunisia increased by 30%, indicating that the crisis remains unresolved. How is immigration affecting Italy? Immigrants arriving from Northern Europe were relatively easier to integrate, as many were middle-class families or skilled workers seeking economic stability. Regions like Lombardy and Emilia-Romagna saw smoother integration compared to areas like Sicily, where poverty was already rampant. However, between 2021 and 2023, Italy experienced significant inflation, with rates exceeding 10% per month at their peak. This inflation, coupled with the economic recession caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, severely impacted the Italian populace, resulting in structural poverty affecting about 10% of the population, predominantly in the south. Crime rates have become a focal point in the debate over immigration. Government reports and news articles frequently highlight the correlation between increased immigration and rising crime rates.
2 people were arrested, 14 police officers were slightly injured.
For example, areas with high immigrant populations have reported upticks in petty crimes, gang activity, and violent offenses. These incidents are often sensationalized in the media, fueling public anxiety and resentment towards immigrants. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, elected in 2022, has been a vocal critic of the European Union's immigration policies. Her speeches resonate with the Italian public's growing frustration. In a powerful address to the nation, Meloni stated, "The uncontrolled influx of immigrants is not only a security threat, but also an economic burden that we can no longer bear. The Italian people deserve a government that puts their needs first." Such rhetoric has galvanized support for her far-right agenda, pushing for stricter immigration controls and policies favoring native Italians. To address these issues, Meloni's administration has implemented several measures: increased border security, enhancing patrols and surveillance technology along the Mediterranean coast to prevent illegal entries, stricter immigration laws, streamlining asylum procedures and tightening criteria for granting refugee status to curb fraudulent claims. The Italian government has also focused on economic measures to alleviate the burden on native citizens, such as foreign property ownership limits, introducing regulations to curb foreign investment in real estate aimed at stabilizing housing markets, affordable housing initiatives, providing incentives for developing low-cost housing to accommodate both natives and legally settled immigrants. How did the population respond to the sum of the crises? The socio-economic impact of immigration, combined with the perception that the government prioritized foreigners over natives, drove Italian society to the far right. Neighborhood assemblies and demonstrations against immigration policies emerged across towns and cities. This shift culminated in the election of Giorgia Meloni, a staunchly anti-immigration leader, as prime minister in 2022. Her rise shocked leftist and centrist European governments, compelling them to reconsider their regional migration policies. Meloni joined forces with Hungary, Poland, and Greece, advocating for a refugee distribution system across the EU based on GDP. She also struck a deal with Tunisia to stem the flow of African migrants, diverting €105 million to Tunisia. Despite international skepticism and internal challenges, Meloni remains resolute. She has also initiated a controversial agreement with Albania to establish refugee centers for processing deportees, with operations under Italian law.
Ogni giorno per mantenere gli impegni che abbiamo sottoscritto con voi in ogni ambito, compreso quello del ripristino della legalità e del contrasto all'immigrazione illegale.
This move aims to manage immigration while upholding human rights standards. Meloni's bold policies are designed to secure Italy's future and return to the greatness of ancient Rome. She believes that only by controlling immigration and protecting Italian interests can the nation reclaim its legacy and ensure a prosperous future for its citizens. What does Meloni plan to do to contain the immigration crisis? Meloni's strategy revolves around the Mattei Plan, an initiative to allocate €5 billion in aid to 9 African nations: Algeria, Democratic Republic of Congo, Egypt, Ethiopia, Ivory Coast, Kenya, Morocco, Mozambique, and Tunisia. This funding, sourced from the National Climate Fund and the Development Cooperation Budget, will focus on education, training, agriculture, health, energy, and water. The first follow-up mission is scheduled for March 2024 in East Africa. The Mattei Plan has garnered strong support, with 21 African heads of state, European Union representatives, and international organizations attending the summit in Rome. Meloni emphasizes the plan's aim to respect people's right not to immigrate. However, progressives argue that it doesn't address root causes like climate change, labor exploitation, and poor living conditions. What is the controversy behind all this? Meloni is also implementing more immediate measures due to dissatisfaction with the results of the Mattei Plan. One of the most controversial is an agreement with Albania to build 2 refugee centers for processing deportees from Italy. According to Meloni, these centers will handle around 36,000 people annually while their citizenship applications are reviewed. She assures that only immigrants detained at sea will be sent to these centers, excluding pregnant women and children. The centers will operate under Italian laws and officials, despite being located in Albania. Albania, seeking Italy's support for EU membership, has agreed to this plan. However, international organizations have expressed concern and will monitor Albania's compliance with human rights standards. The stakes are high, as failure to manage immigration effectively could reverse Italy's recent economic stabilization and threaten its future development and social stability. Meloni's bold actions are framed as a call for a return to the greatness of Rome, appealing to a nationalistic sentiment. Do you think Giorgia Meloni's proposals will effectively address immigration without risking Italy's internal stability, or is macroeconomic decline inevitable?